The rain had finally stopped, leaving the country road glistening and steaming under the weak, late afternoon sun. Puddles filled the potholes like scattered mirrors, reflecting the bruised purple and peach of the clearing sky. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small moments to change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness True Stories. Also, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Jake Mitchell's worn-out sedan, already 2 years past its prime, hissed through the wet asphalt, the sound a constant, anxious whisper beneath the hum of the engine. He checked his watch for the third time in as many minutes. 4:47 p.m. The digital numbers seemed to pulse with a malevolent glow. His stomach churned, a tight knot of dread that had been tightening since lunchtime. He was supposed to be at Morrison Industries 15 minutes ago. His performance review, the words alone were enough to send a chill down his spine, colder than the rain that had just fallen. After 3 late arrivals, this month, each one meticulously documented, his supervisor, Dave, had made it crystal clear, his voice dripping with condescension in the sterile break room. "One more, Mitchell. One more tardy mark on your sheet and we're done. This isn't a daycare. We run on precision here." The threat had hung over Jake's head for weeks, a guillotine waiting to drop. But as he'd rounded that familiar bend 20 minutes earlier, foot heavy on the accelerator, he'd seen her. A splash of unexpected color against the grey-green backdrop of endless fields and dense, dripping forest. A pregnant woman, cloaked in a simple but elegant bronze-colored dress, stood helplessly beside a sleek, black sedan with its hood propped open like a gaping mouth. The hazard lights blinked a futile, rhythmic plea into the empty landscape. No other cars in sight, no houses. Just the lonely road, the whispering trees, and her. Jake had slowed down, his internal debate a furious, frantic storm that lasted all of 2 seconds. The image of his supervisor's smug face warred with the stark vulnerability of the woman's posture. Then his daughter Emma's face flashed through his mind, not as she was now, but a hypothetical image of her mother, years ago, pregnant and stranded. What if someone had driven past her? The thought was a physical ache, a moral imperative that overrode every logical, self-preserving instinct in his body. With a groan that was equal parts frustration and resignation, he guided his car onto the muddy shoulder, gravel crunching beneath the tires. Now kneeling on the cold, wet asphalt with a fine sheen of drizzle still misting the air, Jake tightened the last connection on the woman's battery cable. His good dress shirt was damp. A smudge of black grease adorned his cheek, and his hands were slick with grime. "There you go," he said, his voice tighter than he intended. "Your battery terminal had come completely loose. Corroded, too. I cleaned it up as best I could with what I had. Should start right up now." The woman, who had introduced herself simply as Catherine, placed a protective hand on the proud curve of her belly and smiled with a visible, profound relief that seemed to soften her entire features. "I cannot thank you enough," she said, her voice steady and warm. "I've been here for almost an hour. Cars passed, maybe 5 or 6. They just slowed down, looked and drove on." There was no accusation in her tone, just a weary statement of fact. "Yeah, well," Jake stood, wiping his filthy hands on his already ruined work pants. The action was pointless but instinctual. "Couldn't do that." He looked away across the field. "My late wife. She would have haunted me forever from the great beyond if I'd just driven past." He managed a small, crooked smile, though it felt brittle on his face, a fragile mask over the anxiety gnawing at his insides. 4:52 p.m. Catherine studied him carefully, her gaze missing nothing, the repeated, furtive glances at his wrist, the tension in his shoulders, the way he kept shifting his weight. "You keep checking your watch," she observed gently. "You're late for something important." Jake exhaled slowly, a long breath that carried the weight of his mounting troubles. The kindness in her voice undid him a little. "A meeting at work." "My performance review." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "Probably about to lose my job, actually. But it's fine, Some things are more important." He said it to convince himself as much as her. "More important than your job?" Catherine's eyes were piercing, an intense hazel that held his own. They weren't judging. They were probing, deeply intelligent. My daughter's starting to understand what words like integrity and decency mean, Jake said quietly, his voice gaining a firmness that surprised him. He thought of Emma, her serious brown eyes taking in the world. Better she has a dad who's broke and decent than one with a steady paycheck, who teaches her to drive past people in trouble. The words once spoken felt like his truth, the core of him that all the stress and fear hadn't been able to erode. Catherine's expression softened, a maternal warmth blending with her previous sharp assessment. "What's your daughter's name?" "Emma," Jake said, and instantly his face changed. The lines of worry smoothed, replaced by a pure, unguarded affection. "She's 7. Asks a million questions about everything. Yesterday it was why snails have shells and why clouds don't fall down." Despite the swirling disaster of his situation, a genuine warmth crept into his voice. "She's my whole world. After my wife died 3 years ago, it's just been us two against everything." "Being late," Catherine ventured, her tone gentle but direct. "Is this a pattern?" "The reason for the review?" Jake's jaw tightened. He looked down at his greasy hands. The urge to unburden himself warred with his pride, but her calm presence was disarming. "Emma's been sick. A bad bout of pneumonia last month. It's been a cycle, doctor's appointments, picking her up from school when the fever spikes in the middle of the day, sleepless nights." He ran a hand through his hair. "My supervisor doesn't care about excuses. He says I should plan better or find backup care, as if I have family in town, as if I'm not already doing everything humanly possible just to keep it all together." The frustration, long bottled up, leaked out in his words. Catherine was quiet for a long moment, her gaze thoughtful as she watched the emotions play across his face. The silence was filled only with the drip of water from the leaves and the distant call of a crow. Then decisively, she reached into her open car door and pulled out a slim leather wallet. From it she extracted a single crisp business card. She held it out to him. "Take this," she said. "Come see me tomorrow morning at this address. 90s km sharp." Puzzled, Jake took the card, wiping his thumb clean on his pants before holding it up. The paper was thick, expensive. The embossed lettering was simple, elegant, and devastatingly familiar. Morrison Industries. Executive Suite, 40th floor. Catherine Morrison, Chief Executive Officer. His blood ran cold. The world seemed to tilt, the sounds of the forest fading into a high-pitched hum in his ears. His mouth went dry. "Wait," he stammered, his head snapping up to look at her. Then back at the card, then at her again. "Morrison Industries, that's where I work. That's where I'm about to be fired from." "I know," Catherine said calmly, a slight knowing smile touching her lips. "How could you possibly—" Jake's eyes widened as recognition, slow and then sudden, finally dawned. The polished photo in the main lobby, the one he passed every day without really seeing, the dignified woman with the intelligent eyes and the steady smile. He'd never seen her in person. Catherine Morrison, the Catherine Morrison, owner and CEO of the entire sprawling company. She kept a low profile, rarely visiting the manufacturing floors where he toiled as a machine operator. She was a legend, a name on memos and a face behind glass. "Oh, God," Jake breathed, the card feeling suddenly radioactive in his hand. He straightened up awkwardly, shame and shock washing over him. "Mrs. Morrison, I'm so sorry, "Catherine," she corrected firmly, but her eyes held that same warmth. "And tomorrow, 9:00 a.m., my office. Don't be late." There was a hint of something in her stern tone, not threat, but a challenge, edged with what might have been compassion. He could only nod, dumbstruck, as she gracefully slid into the driver's seat of her now purring sedan. With a final small wave, she pulled carefully back onto the road and drove off, leaving Jake standing alone on the shoulder, the scent of damp earth and gasoline in the air, the business card clutched in his dirty hand, and his future irrevocably, terrifyingly and hopefully altered. The drive to his now pointless meeting was a blur. The inevitable blistering meeting with Dave, the cold termination notice, the walk of shame out of the plant, All of it happened in a numb haze. The only real thing was the card in his pocket, a talisman of impossible coincidence. The next morning, at 8:58 a.m., Jake stood outside the forbidding mahogany doors of the executive suite, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He wore his only remaining clean shirt, the memory of Catherine's, Ms. Morrison's, piercing gaze giving him the courage to push the door open. What happened next wasn't just about keeping a job. It was about a CEO who valued the character of her employees as much as their punctuality records. It was about the creation of a new, family-flexible policy for parents in the company, inspired by a struggling machinist named Jake. It was about second chances earned not by luck, but by a choice made on a wet road, a choice that defined who he was when no one in power was watching. Thank you for watching this touching story of kindness and integrity. This narrative reminds us that our truest character is revealed not in times of ease, but in moments of difficult choice. Small acts of decency can ripple outward in ways we never imagine. If this story resonated with you, please consider supporting our channel, Kindness True Stories. We are dedicated to sharing tales that highlight the goodness in people, the quiet heroes among us, and the profound impact of compassion. Help us spread more hope and inspiration. Like this story if it moved you. Share it with someone who needs a reminder of human kindness. Subscribe to Kindness True Stories for regular, heartwarming content that celebrates the best in all of us. Together, we can build a community centered on empathy and positive change. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story of true kindness.